Greatcell Solar Ltd, ASX GSL on the Australian Stock Exchange is a global leader in the development of third generation solar cell technology. And joining me on the line right now is Richard Caldwell, Managing Director. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Tim, and thanks for having me on, and happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's also ABN Newswire's 12th birthday today, so welcome to the studio.
Cause for more celebration.
Thank you. You've got some very exciting news coming up with the partnerships that you've got both domestically and offshore. And we'll talk about a capital raising in a minute, but first of all, the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, ARENA, have come to party with you with some money. Please tell us about that.
Well, Tim, it's been a fabulous quarter for us, and the good news has been flowing thick and fast after what I'd consider a reasonably long gestation period, but all's well that ends well. So this week we got notification from ARENA that they're offering up to $6 million of funding for our major area demonstration project. So that is a really pivotal time for the company. It's transformational. The work we've been doing in the laboratory now can go forth and express itself in prototyping. And prototyping is an inherently risky activity, so it's nice to have support from the government, but also with a successful conclusion to that prototyping activity, it will be a major step forward for taking this technology to commercialisation. So we are particularly excited, and having worked for the company with the government, for some time in due diligence, it's great to have this come to conclusion. I might also note that the government enlisted a very world luminary in third generation PV technology to support our case for the $6 million grant. And it's fantastic to have that validation translating into this $6 million offer.
Wow, commercialisation, but you're not talking about commercialisation in Australia. You've recently entered into a partnership with the largest solar cell manufacturer on the planet with global offices. They're selling solar cells everywhere. That's JinkoSolar, who are not just a solar cell manufacturer, but are a vertical integrator from solar cells to power stations. So how do you see the commercialisation of the PV technology with Jinko?
Well, most importantly, we're just looking to validate the technology at the cell, module and panel level, and the major area demonstration prototype project will be the final expression of that, and we look to leverage that into various major markets around the world. The inquiry from Jinko came pretty much out of the blue, so it's very exciting. Jinko is not a marginal player. Jinko is the largest manufacturer of PV panels in the world, not only for the domestic Chinese market, but also as a global exporter. So that's very exciting.
That's a win.
This market's growing very rapidly. The projections are 10 to 15%, but actually in the last 2 years, growth globally has been around 45 to 50%, and the market now is approaching $100 billion annually. The one issue that the current manufacturers in the silicon PV market face is declining margins. So the fact that Jinko are looking at this technology as the next potential step for growth in their existing product set is very exciting to us. We're a little cautious, of course, dealing into markets like China, where one needs to take things very carefully, and risk management is a real focus for our board. But so far so good, and to have them evaluating our technology as the leading exponent of Perovskite Solar cells in the third generation of PV is very exciting for us, and very, very gratifying, and validates the hard work we've put in over the last few years in proving up the viability of this technology.
Yeah, I know, and I'm always reminded of the triangle of efficiency that your solar cells have: the longer life, cheaper materials, and higher power output, which, you know, in solar cell technology and manufacturing is a critical element, competing with the silicon-based technologies. Now, in your last quarterly report, you've announced that you've closed off the negotiations on the CRC contract. Can you please tell us about that? The grant, rather.
I'll take you back to February of this year when the Department of Industry made us an offer of $2.5 million in what's known as the CRC-P grant. In that grant, the government was instrumental in bringing together technology, the nation's leading R&D exponent in the CSIRO, and of course industry.
And also investors need to be reminded that CSIRO is one of your largest shareholders.
CSIRO is indeed one of our largest strategic shareholders, and that relationship was consolidated this year with a letter of intent where we're preferred partners in applications for Australian funding in relation to perovskite solar cells. So that really optimises and focuses our ability on giving this technology every chance of success. So where we are now, the participants agreement and the funding agreement for that particular grant have now been signed by all parties, and we look forward to translating that into activity which will materialise on site at Clayton in Victoria with CSIRO, which of course is very near to CSR's glass manufacturing activity, which it undertakes via Viridian, its major glass subsidiary. So that's very exciting, and over the next few months we look to be able to report on how we're progressing with that major scale-up activity, which particularly focuses on solution-based coatings on large area glass, which is in fact particularly innovative and world-class in terms of bringing down the cost of processing for PV applications. So, you know, we're leading the world here in Australia with the government's assistance to do that.
The last point on the agenda here, of course, is the capital raising, which is very exciting right now. So this is for existing shareholders. New shareholders are unable to jump in on this one?
No, well, the timing's fantastic for existing shareholders because during the capital raising, as you know, the ARENA grant has been announced, so it gives even greater motivation for investors to participate in the SPP, and of course that's restricted to existing shareholders. We've always used the SPP because we've got a large retail shareholder base here in Australia of over 5,000 shareholders, so it's nice to reach out to them, particularly with this good news, to help take us forward. It's a relatively modest raising, but it will be matched with government funding, so it's consistent with our strategy at the board level of minimising dilution to existing shareholders. But more importantly, the news for existing shareholders is that the Jinko announcement and also the ARENA announcement has attracted significant institutional interest. So the institutions are excluded from this offer, but to have them looking to invest in our company is quite exciting because ultimately they have deep pots of capital, which at a later date may help to take this from what we describe as lab to fab, or from laboratory to fabrication. And the market, as you know, is approaching $100 billion globally for PV technology, and over time we hope to be a player, and that's what our strategy is clearly focused on.
With roughly about a week left to go on the SPP?
About a week, yes. So it'll be closing today week.
Very exciting. Richard Caldwell, Managing Director for Greatcell Solar on the Australian Stock Exchange GSL. Look them up right now. Richard, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.